welcome to episode 6 of the CatchMark SportsNet Podcast. We deal with West Michigan Conference sports and related topics. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, related to the best this, best that in West Michigan Conference football history. I'm Scott DeCamp, one of the co-hosts of this show, and I'm here with Ken Byard.
Good morning.
Hey, Ken, good morning. And Tate Stine.
Good morning to you.
And we're missing somebody here today. His name is Brent Rath, our managing partner. It's the elephant in the living room. Everyone's wondering what happened to Brent. I guess you could say maybe he was voted off the island, but you guys didn't have a vote, I guess. So it wasn't just for me. But no, he's got some stuff that he's taking care of with business-wise, and he's just going to take a little break, from the show, and he may be back, but he's he liked the way that the show flowed with us. A couple weeks ago when we did this show, it was just the three of us, and we had the guest Tommy Lauterberg on there. But so, how was your weekend, guys?
It's good. Yeah, good weekend.
It was all right.
Yeah, went to a wedding up in the UP, over in Wisconsin too. So did some traveling. Listened to the Lions game on the way back. Picked it up at the third quarter, and I thought to myself, I should turn it off because we're winning. And I listened to the whole thing, and it was a frustrating drive, to say the least.
I believe that. I mean, it wasn't on the weekend, but the Steelers also played. Oh, Lord. Oh, my gosh. I can't stand it anymore. I don't know if you're aware with the situation that's going on in Pittsburgh, the Mitch Trubisky quarterback, offensive coordinator fiasco. Let's just say I'm about ready to call it quits for this season already.
Yeah, we're in week 3, right?
Yeah, no, it's and me being a Michigan State grad, and then being a Lions fan as well. It's a double whammy.
Yeah.
And it's been that way going back to when I was going to school there. It was always a double whammy, and that's when Michigan State was really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And then things kind of got on track a bit, for a while there, and things are kind of bad right now in these last couple weeks, and who knows if there's if that's going to get cleaned up anytime soon. But, the Lions stuff, it's like you try to say every week, you're like, no, it's not going to happen this week. They're going to figure it out.
It's so frustrating. I will take full blame for that loss. I should have turned the game off.
It's on you.
So I'll take this one, Dan.
No doubt. I mean, the fourth down. I mean, you go on fourth down so many times before, and then all of a sudden you decide not to.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it.
All right, we got some other stuff to talk about anyway. So, pulling that Band-Aid off. Brent is not here. He's exiting the podcast kind of for the time being. Maybe he'll come back. Maybe he'll come begging back to join us. But, no, it wasn't anything bad. It was just he liked the flow of the way things were with us kind of running it. And so it was good. But if anyone does want to see him on the podcast, we are accepting donations because the big guy's not cheap.
Hey, when you're the boss,
right?
You call the shots,
right? So, but we on that topic of sponsors, it's a good time to kind of thank them now. The ones we do have, we're very grateful for what we do have with the sponsors we have and the way we support it. Because if they didn't, we wouldn't be able to do this. So that starts with Grieve Law, West Michigan Joint Divorce, Big Stone Therapies, Greenridge Realty with Chris Dykema and Sarah Reel. You've got North Grove Brewers, Foundation Systems of Michigan and John Botten, Coldwell Banker, Dave Dusenberry. I'm waiting for you, Tate.
Distinguished.
Okay. Scheid Plumbing, Heating and Cooling. Special thank you to our title sponsors, Van Dyke Mortgage Lakeshore, whose commitment to finding you the right home loan is second to none. Their experienced licensed team is ready to work with you to ensure a smooth and timely loan process from application to closing. Check them out at 460 West Western Avenue in Muskegon or give them a call, 231-332-6500. And also, Derg Insurance Group. They look at success through a different set of lenses, placing the relationship with their clients first. Regardless of what stage you're in, they are there for you each step of the way to offer the level of insight and care that you deserve. Check them out at their office at 1535 Far Road in Norton Shores, or call them Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, 231-744-9106. Okay, so before we kick this off, too, I have to. There's one more change going on. We are in a new podcast room, and you might not be able to tell by looking at your screen, but we're all looking outside now, the big window looking out to Colby Street. We feel like we're kind of in a fishbowl here. How do you guys feel about these new digs?
Yeah, I'm going to be easily distracted, I can tell you right now. So if I'm wandering, it's because I'm just checking out the outside.
I get down with the natural light. I kind of feel like I'm gathering some vitamin D at the same time.
Yeah, Ken's hoopty sitting out there.
Mm-hmm.
He came in on a mission when he pulled up to the curb.
Coming in hot. Thanks to Betten Baker Honda.
All right. Well done. So, I think this is going to be a cool setup, though. And I think as we progress in this podcast, it'll be better and better as we go. And that's what we're looking to do. I think it's already a good thing that we got going, but it's pretty cool. So, basically, to the point, it's a really big week. And in the West Michigan Conference, you've got the number one game, obviously, is Whitehall at Oak Ridge. It's the North Grove Brewers West Michigan Conference Game of the Week. CatchMark SportsNet will be there live streaming it for free as part of our comprehensive Game of the Week coverage. We're getting into, we're more and more in the social media space, including TikTok, and we might push the boundaries of that a little bit, but we try to have fun with it, and we think there's been a great response. Before we get into all that hardcore football stuff, what do you guys think about where we've been going with the social media?
I really like where we're going with the social media, and I think it shows in the amount of interaction that we're getting. Just the post of North Muskegon student section has 11,000 views now. The Whitehall one has around 16,000 views, and people seem to be eating that stuff up right now.
Yeah, it's fun. So I just want to go back to the Game of the Week podcast. So I didn't get to coach Friday. I actually watched the game from the restaurant that we were at. And what great coverage, that the drone that was up and the footage from that, and just the job that the announcers did and highlighting, both those programs. Just a nice product that was put out as a viewer.
No, thank you for that. Yeah,
nice job.
No, and there was a young man at North Muskegon. I'm sure you well know him because everyone in North Muskegon knows each other. CJ Bennett.
Yeah,
he's a sophomore
amazing.
now. He is. We met him Friday at the game. I think he might run their huddle camera or something, but he was talking to Billy Mann, our basically lead producer on these live streams, and they kind of worked together, and he got our link and promoted it, and he seems like an up-and-comer that, we would love to kind of work with if he was interested in that. So, CJ, if you're listening, we really we were impressed with you.
Yes,
say that.
He's an impressive young man. He knows his stuff. Yeah.
So, and then, that video that Tate's alluding to, the TikTok, I don't know. I doubt it's just a North Muskegon thing, but the baby powder thing, where they throw the baby powder straight up in the air. It's all over the place. Is that a tradition at North Muskegon?
I don't recall that happening the last few years, but with the new administration in there, maybe the kids are having more fun because the last administrator was not.
No.
So I don't know. It's pretty cool though.
I saw that happen at the Spring Lake Montague game too. Spring Lake, it was a whiteout. They brought the baby powder, and I think it's really cool, especially looking over. They had the speaker going too, but I'd just be pretty mad if I was standing next to someone. I'm catching baby powder in my mouth.
It was all over the bleachers, like walking through at the end of the night. And North Muskegon had, I think they call them their Gold Rush uniforms. They had those on.
Yeah.
So they were going with that. But so my biggest takeaways of the night, and sorry, Hart, I don't mean this as any offense. It was Hart's, I think, doing some good things, but North Muskegon is a really good team in so many ways that they can hurt you, and they did. But my two biggest, I guess, memories of that game was the baby powder, and then I was on the field trying to finish up some interviews, and I could hear the North Muskegon locker room, which was probably about 60, 70 yards away, just blast and Careless Whisper. and I'm like, what? Is that someone tailgating, or is that actually their locker room? So I had to investigate. I went around the corner, and sure enough, it was the locker room. I'm like, guys, that's George Michael, like in 1980 something.
Yeah, Wham.
Seriously?
How do you not like Wham?
Wham. Yeah, they love it. They said, we love this song.
That's a baby making song.
Is that where the baby powder ties in, or what?
It's all connected.
Now, okay, it's making sense now. So it all makes sense. But so next week our game of the week will be Ravenna at North Muskegon, which we anticipate will be for all the marbles in the Rivers division. Should be a great game. But this week, Oak Ridge at Whitehall, Whitehall, Oak Ridge, I'll get that right. Russell A. Erickson Stadium, 7 o'clock Friday. They're both undefeated in the early going. I mean, what do you guys think of? I think it's the game of the week or game of the year in the conference. What do you guys say about that?
I mean, it has to be the game of the year. Both unbeaten. This is definitely going to decide who wins that division for the West Michigan Conference. But I just don't know if I can see. I think Oak Ridge will put up a good fight, a better fight than anyone has so far. But I still got Whitehall by a couple touchdowns.
Hold on to your predictions. We'll get those at the end.
Okay. I'll stop.
I want an exact score from you guys too, because I'm always the one that gets jammed with that on the mark.
In
But
the
you guys can
journalist
do that.
comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great game. Great environment. Is that anybody's homecoming?
I think Oak Ridge had homecoming last week.
Oh, did they?
against
Okay.
Fremont.
Yeah, no, it'll be a great game. That'll be game of the year for sure. Yeah.
So on the topic of best this, best that, it's kind of a good time to maybe talk about some historical things, which is tough. I mean, my football watching years, I guess, go back, and I'm really dating myself to probably the mid to late, especially late 1980s. You weren't even born yet, Tate.
Wasn't even a thought.
No. And you're a little bit younger than me, but
Yeah, probably 96 when I really started getting to know local football.
this area, yeah. So we got a list of topics we want to go through. And this just basically, all you can go is on the knowledge that you have, that you've either seen or heard about. So best football player of all time in the West Michigan Conference.
Oh my.
That's a tough one. A really tough one. I mean, and you know probably at least some of the history of North Muskegon, maybe through reading Jim Moy's stuff and all that stuff like that. He'd be a great guy to have on this topic.
He would be.
Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gosh. I'm not old enough for this. I don't want to. I can't. I only know so many football players.
In your knowledge, from what you've heard, from what you've seen.
From what I've seen. I have watched a lot of football games from age probably 9 or 10 to now. But the best, I need your guys' opinion on this first because you have more knowledge than I do.
If I had to pick one person that you had to have on your team, I'm going to go Ryan Van Bergen. He could shut half the field down, and I was fortunate to be his defensive coordinator his senior year, and we put him on whatever half. We literally shut that half of the field down, and so that makes your job a lot easier. But there are so many others. I mean, I could rattle off, Chad Plinus at MCC was a heck of a player. Nate McLeod, how do you not throw his name in the mix? Cody Cater. Yeah, but if I had to go with one dude, that would be the dude.
I mean, I can rattle off names too. It's hard to pick that one, and they all do different things. Van Bergen's great just because a lot of times people are thinking in quarterbacks, running backs, they're not thinking of the big guys up front. But if we're talking about big guys up front, obviously, and I'm biased just because being from Ravenna, Charlie Knapp, I'm not saying he was the best player in the league, but he was one of the better ones to come through. Todd Hermans, although he blossomed kind of more so after high school. He was good in high school, good player, but he blossomed more after high school. Obviously, Benny Clark out there, but Jamie Potts from Oak Ridge, he was just an absolute stud.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you mentioned Cater. There's just so many ways to go. If you go way back, back in who's Jim Moy's? Was it Stan Guy? Was he way back?
That sounds familiar.
He's a guy from way back.
Yeah.
North Muskegon.
Yeah.
Man, I guess like if you look at, just go through each team. Like who is the best player that you've seen from each team, or who are the best players you've seen?
I don't know if I could give you a best. I can give you one of the most fun to watch, and one of the guys that I really enjoyed watching was Brennan Schwartz when he was in high school just a few years ago. I mean, talk about a deep ball threat. Probably about 6'3", 6'4". I think he weighed around just about 200, 195. Had a 40-something inch vertical. And I remember, who was the big running back from Oak Ridge?
Leroy Quinn.
That's right. When Leroy would come through the line, there was probably about 2 or 3 plays I can remember, he had a wide open hole. The line opened it for him. And then Brennan Schwartz came in and filled that hole and stopped him dead in his tracks. And that wasn't any small running back with the ball in his hands.
He's a big boy.
He's a big boy. So Brennan Schwartz, I really loved watching him play.
Yeah, Schwartz was covering him. He could do everything, too. I mean, he had that frame. He had, like you said, he had the frame, the strength, the speed, and the agility to do a lot of different things on the football field. He's at Ferris now.
Yeah.
Trying to work his way up into the depth chart. But, yeah, so he was a stud.
Yeah. Speaking Montague, obviously outside of Cody Cater, Ryan Cockrell, whose dad owns Hardware, did at some point, 2-time All-Stater, junior and a senior. He was an absolute terror as a nose and a guard. Wes Hunter was a running back in the day. Chad Osborne. Those are all Montague got names that stick out in my mind.
Yeah, Cody Cater, obviously back-to-back state titles, Division I quarterback. All those things. And I mean, just watching him play in high school, what struck you the most? And I don't know if you've kind of gone and seen videos of him and stuff, but for both of you guys, what kind of struck you about Cater?
So I had a weird acknowledgement. I had an opportunity to do quarterback workouts with both Cody as a 6th through 8th grader, and then Tyree as a 6th through 8th grader, because I was at Shores that time. So I worked with both Division I quarterbacks out of Muskegon up until recently, I think. Or maybe even now they're the only 2 Division I quarterbacks. And I knew as a 6th grader that Cody was special, because the way his delivery was so quick and the spin he put on it was phenomenal. And we just knew, this dude's going to be good. And when I worked with Tyree in 6th grade, it was the same reaction, whoa, it just comes off different, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I remember watching Cody. It's almost like they look different on the field. They're moving. Obviously, he wasn't always the fastest guy, but he was fast, and he was quick, and he was shifty. But he almost moves in a different way than everyone else on the field. And you can just see the elevation of the game and the skill from a player like that to some other players in the West Michigan Conference. And he could do almost everything, if not everything.
Yeah, they see it differently. They process it faster, and so the game slows down for them. They're D1 kids are special. I mean, college football players are special. 1% of high school kids go on to play, but Division I quarterbacks, they're next level.
Yeah, and watching him mentor another really good football player in Montague history, Drew Collins, who ended up being an Associated Press Player of the Year in the state. It was entertaining watching Cody work with him, just from the standpoint of even during pregame, Drew's, they're warming up and Drew's throwing some passes to receivers, and Cody's out there kind of trying to show off that arm, and he had some good. He still has good zip on the ball for being out of the game as far as playing.
Yeah, what a great opportunity for Drew, though. You come in as a quarterback, and here's your quarterback coach.
Yeah, yeah,
not a bad guy to listen to.
And then Pat Collins, in his own right, was a great player for Montague back in the early '90s. Led them to their first state title appearance, and so there's been some good ones. Whitehall, Van Bergen. You mentioned Nate McLouth, and I know we're missing several others. Jeff Stark was a good running back. Excuse me. I'm not coughing because of Jeff, and I don't have COVID. At least I tested negative.
Tony Fountain was a heck of a receiver.
He was. There's been some.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this year they've got some dudes as well. So, I mean, you just saw them Friday against Manistee.
Oh yeah. I honestly thought they played an okay game. I didn't think they played very great. I thought they played better against Montague, and they still won by that many points, and it's impressive to watch.
So, if you go up to Mason County Central, Plinus
for sure.
He jumps
really
out at
sticks
you.
out for sure.
He's the one that probably stands out more than others.
Yeah.
Although back in the day, the defensive coordinator at Northwestern that just retired, that was from Hankwitz.
Yeah.
Mike Hankwitz is another big name, from up there at Mason County Central. He's right up in that discussion there. Hart, I know they've had a little bit of a tougher go. But historically, they were good way back when.
Yeah, they had the Vanderput kid as a running back, 96, 97, 98.
Yeah, and
he was tough.
And his kid, Corey, just graduated from Oak Ridge.
Yeah, okay.
That was his son that just graduated. So there's, Red, I want to say Red Hansen. Forgive me if I got that wrong, but he was the man back in the day for Hart, and that was when there wasn't playoffs, and they were undefeated. Hart was, I don't know if that was the 40s or when that was, but they were undefeated, and then the season ended because of the war.
Oh, really?
Otherwise, it would have been like a mythical state title back then, but they were the team to beat back then.
Interesting.
So, just pulling that out of up here.
That's
somewhere.
some deep knowledge.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. For Monday morning, that's impressive.
And then, Shelby, obviously the Gowls that have come through, those guys were beasts coming through there. And they've, obviously, by the way, shout out to them. They just snapped a 21-game losing skid. Got that win, 22-16 overtime over Hesperia on Friday. But
well, I think their new quarterback's going to be pretty good too.
yeah, Garcia,
yeah, he's a good athlete.
Have you seen him in baseball too? Or
Yeah,
no?
he's a heck of a player. Yeah,
He's got a good arm, doesn't he?
He's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, they could make it 2 in a row too coming up here. There's a possibility they could take that next one they face off against Holton.
Holding at home for Shelby's homecoming.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away my guest picks, but
Because Ken is our guest picker this week.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So, but Shelby, not real long ago, we've talked about it before, but they were in the semifinals back-to-back years.
Back-to-back
So
years.
they're not, they were right there in the mix and winning conference titles not so long ago. So obviously had some good players come through then. If you keep kind of heading south, we already talked about Whitehall Montague, but North Muskegon, we mentioned them. But I remember, and this was before you were in the area, Ken, but the Hutchersons, I think, Dante and Rondell, those guys.
I've heard the stories.
Those guys were amazing.
Yeah. You can throw as recent as T.J. McKenzie in there, Chandler Edwards, who's at Wayne State, Jesse Cook, who's playing. Who's the kid that went to Ferris? Fortenbacher?
No, I'm trying to remember. Because there's a Troy Fortin that was a good football player.
Troy Fortin
that played
was a good
baseball
one.
Western.
That's right. Yeah, he was good.
I'm trying to remember the guy's name that went to Ferris. And wasn't Vernell a good player too?
Vernell Smith, the
Smith.
senior at Alma this year. The quarterback that went to Brown, Judge's kid.
Trying to think who
Skipping
that
me
was.
now. Marietti.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, and then I'm trying to remember if the Kakatis played football or not.
Yeah, that I don't know.
did.
But he could score.
Yeah. So, and then you move over. You've got Oak Ridge. That list is endless.
That's a long list.
Jamie Potts was amazing back in the day. Tim Postma and David Nelson were really good. They've just had a lot of just really good players that have come through there. I know we're missing a lot of them. And there's different levels to them too.
Right.
And I'm trying to think if there was who the Division I, the Muskegon Area Sports Hall of Fame inducted Calvin Johnson, not the Detroit Lions one, but the other one, and he was like a Division I athlete. He played basketball in the Ivy League, and he was a good football player, good in track. So, but they've had a lot of lists of names. Ravenna's had a lot of lists that we've already mentioned. So, and then you can't really count like the newcomers to the league, but Orchard View, if you did, Orchard View's had, Josh Kerr and guys like that come through, Curtis Adams, just guys like that.
Yeah, NFLers.
Yeah. So Ludington's had some guys. So, but yeah, so that's, but for best football player of all time, as far as when I say all time in your life, who's your pick?
You got to name somebody.
You have to go with one.
How am I not going to say Cody Cater? I've watched so many Cody Cater games, and then I remember all of us sitting around the living room, sitting to watch him play against the Michigan Wolverines, the game he got hurt, unfortunately. Yeah. And I wasn't that old. I was probably 11-ish years ago, more than a decade. So I think I was actually playing kickball when it happened. I think I got bored. I think I went out to the yard. That was over at somebody's house. I wasn't, but we were all sitting around. But I remember watching him at home games, and I remember people oohing and ahhing some of the balls that he plays. He not only had the arm strength, but he could put it anywhere he wanted, inside, outside the numbers, right on dude's chest. So I'm gonna have to say Cody
And
Gator.
those guys usually have some swagger too. Like they know they're good.
You used the term polarizing one time. I remember that.
You're up, Ken.
Mine all time.
Yep.
All time.
All time.
Got to name somebody.
Okay, Tate. I'm gonna go back to Van Bergen. I think that's the one. He was just such a difference maker, and athletic as all get out. I remember we played him at safety one time. Just because we're like, we think they're gonna go deep. Let's put our best athlete back there, and it was him and not Troy or Tony Fountain, right? So I'm gonna go with him.
Well, I'm going to be labeled a homer, and I try not to be that. Usually I go the other way, but I have to. I mean, I just because of accomplishment and excitement, I got to go with Benny Clark, I guess.
That's fair.
Now, that's just in my football watching days. I know there's so many good players that have come through, and some that are maybe even more complete in terms of the size. Like, Benny wasn't very big. He was 5'7" or 5'8" or whatever, and about 155, 160 pounds, but he was
electric.
He was kind of like the high school version of Barry Sanders in some ways. And he was good on defense too, but he didn't have like the size, and that's maybe the one thing that could have prevented him from maybe even more success in college. He played at Western, so he still played Division I ball. But you got guys like Jamie Potts and those others who are just big, strong, fast. Cody. I mean, there's just on Van Bergen. I mean, there's just so many.
Jamie would be a good one. Two sports at a Division II level, that's pretty special, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was really good at Grand Valley as well. So
got drafted to the Rangers.
Yeah. So I mean, and he was probably 6'2", probably around 200 pounds or so, probably in that range.
Yeah, he played in a. North Muskegon did a fundraiser, a dodgeball fundraiser. He came and played in it, I don't know, probably 4 years ago. And it just wasn't fair. Like what you see in movies, like ball coming out, just drilling people. And like he beat a whole team, I think, by himself, and ball's coming in at like 90. Kids are like, what's going on? Who is this dude?
I don't want to raise money anymore.
Tate's like, I'm not playing dodgeball. I'm going to stick to kickball.
Tate was the Benny Clark of kickball.
All right, moving it along. Next topic, best program of all time in the West Michigan Conference. I mean, if you look, it goes back to what, I guess. I mean, it goes back a long ways, almost.
I mean,
century, basically.
I mean, historically, if you go just based on state titles, then it has to be Montague, right? If that's your criteria.
Right.
They've won the most, I think, out of all.
Ravenna has.
Oh, they have?
Ravenna has more.
Oh, well, look at me.
Mike has 3. Oak Ridge has 3.
Okay. Well, I stand corrected. It's Ravenna.
But, well, it might not be them. Like, I would, if you're going to look at, it depends how you break it up.
Right.
If you look at conference titles.
Sure.
How would the homer break it up?
The homer would say that, I mean, if you're looking at best all-time overall program from beginning to end, I got to go with Oak Ridge, I think, just because they're so consistent. They're there every single year. And I'd have to look at the numbers again to see who has the most conference titles, but they're right up there. It might even be North Muskegon because they won quite a few back in the 40s, 50s, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I got to go with Oak Ridge, I think.
You know what? I do too. You talk about consistency and always being competitive regardless of the kids that graduated, the ones you have up. They always you can count on them to be right in the mix all the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go with you.
I can't pick one because I'm not old enough.
Oh, come on.
But I will say for my years watching, there's always been Montague, obviously, in recent history. Mm-hmm. Whitehall's they've been a little off and on. And then Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge has always been one where it's like, if we know we're playing them, we're going to have packed stands because they're always going to bring it. I don't remember the last time I went, if there was ever a time I went to an Oak Ridge football game and thought, oh, we're going to kill them. And in recent history, I can't remember a time where we did kill them. So,
yeah, and they just don't get blown out ever. I can't think about a game where they got blown out. Maybe a playoff game with West or something like that. But But for the most part, they're always competitive regardless of who they play, what year they're playing, whatever it looks like.
No, that's true. I mean, in the last, 10, 15 years, it's been all Montague Oak Ridge pretty much. I mean, those two have dominated the league for the most part. Shelby snuck in there a couple times, and I think Ravenna got a title. It's been a while since Ravenna's won a title, and I think they might have even shared it the last time they did. But they, like Ravenna, for instance, has more state titles and conference titles in the West Michigan Conference, because they've got 4 state titles and 3 conference titles. So
look at you. That's impressive too.
Yeah.
You're on today.
I can't even remember my professor's name.
Seriously.
That's impressive.
I remember this immaterial stuff. So
I literally got to go to class after this, be like, hey, Mrs. God, I wish Scott was here.
Yeah, I don't know. Best program. I mean, how do you define what makes a program great or makes them the best program?
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to look through the history, and if you could look at is it conference titles? Is it overall best record? Right? Who turns out the most college kids? There's so many different criteria, but I'm gonna go back to what you said and just that consistency, and knowing that you're gonna have a battle every year you play them. Oak Ridge would be the one, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a combination of titles and consistency, because if you're consistently going, winning more games than you're losing every year, that's great, and it's great to look at. But if you can't win the big games on top of that, then it's only so impressive.
That's fair.
No, and if you look at Oak Ridge and Montague, they really haven't dipped at all either. I mean, Montague had a 2-7 team there, during Collins' tenure, but that's a real rarity.
Oh,
Yeah.
And you just don't see that out of those programs, though.
Right.
Oak Ridge is always in the mix, and even if they're not winning it, they're right there. And so I agree with that about those different facets with winning championships, and just always being in that mix. And, but if you also look at why are those teams successful, you look at Oak Ridge, I think they've had 2 coaches in 42 years or something like that.
Says a lot.
2 head coaches.
Says a lot. That program means a lot to that community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So best team of all time, not best program, best team, like best single team.
I don't know why you're asking the 18-year-old these questions. This is above my pay grade.
I'm going to go with Montague team with Cater, Moore. So what year was that?
That was probably 2010, 2011.
They were loaded.
They won in, was it 8 and 9 they won it, I think? They won 08 and 09.
Well, be more graduate. Oh, so it'd be 09.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that team. I mean, they had a Division I quarterback, multiple Division II receivers, a couple linebackers that went on to play somewhere else at Division II. Like, you just don't find that at D6 schools.
Mm-mm.
So, to me, that one stands out to me.
Well, since I'm not going to get anything from Tate out of this, I'm going to have to carry this one too.
Yeah.
Along with Ken. No, and I'm going to be a homer again.
Oh, okay.
94 Ravenna was, and again, is it the best? I don't know. Jim Moyes said it was, but was he saying that because he was talking to the Ravenna guy when I was interviewing him? I don't know. 94 had Benny Clark, who was at the time the state's leading rusher, career, until he got passed by a bunch of other guys, Kevin Grady and all those guys that came through. And then they had Charlie Knapp, who went to Western, Benny at Western. They had the Nichols twins, Kent and Kevin. I don't know if they both played at Western or went to Western, but they walked on or something. And then, but the team was just loaded beyond that.
They had 4 D1 guys?
They had 2 legit D1 guys with Benny and Charlie. And then they had the Nichols boys who, I don't know if they walked on and were there briefly at Western, but they gave it a shot. They were probably both high D3, D2, like legit D2 guys probably. Matt Crawley was a great athlete, a gamer. Brandon Cantola was a great fullback, defensive end. He was about 6'2", 215. Ravenna averaged probably about 250, 260 on the line. They were enormous.
And they were playing D6, right?
Yeah, and Charlie Knapp was 6'5", 300. Mike Anthony was 6'3", 270. Gary Johnson was 6'1", 6'2", 220. That guy was an animal.
That's not fair.
Gary Johnson he played nose, and he was, good size, strong, fast, and he was just mean. And he was just, my dad ran the chains at Ravenna for years, and he would see opposing centers like on occasion come jogging to the sideline like almost crying, saying, "I can't block the guy. I can't block this guy." And he just because he was so dominating. But they had a lot of other really good complementary players. They were loaded. They're undefeated. They beat Schoolcraft 43-7 in the state finals, and this wasn't something that I heard personally, but the story as the story goes, when they took the field, or when I think Farmington was Harrison, and that's when John Harrington was coaching them. His team just won. I don't know if they beat Granville or lost to Granville or whatever. Was coming off the field. And him and his coaches were looking at Ravenna, come on the field. He's like, "I'm glad we're not playing you guys today." And they were Class A then.
Right.
And Ravenna was C. Well, it wasn't 6, it was C. It was C double C.
Right.
Ravenna had one of those special teams that I don't know that they would have won all throughout the divisions, but they could have competed quite a few divisions up.
With size like that, absolutely.
Yeah, size, speed,
Right.
ability. They could throw it when they wanted, but they didn't have to usually because Benny was so good and the line was so big. But they were pretty, they had a couple semi-close games, but, just a really good team.
That's why I feel like when you do have a state championship team, there's almost a little bit of luck that goes into it, because you got to have, like, when it comes to timing of players that are that age, you almost got to have a little bit of luck with having this stacked of a class, or back-to-back classes. You need to have a little bit of luck for the amount of talent and size that you have.
Yeah, I would go with a lot of bit of luck, because you can have all that and it still doesn't come together.
Right.
No, because there's been some great teams that haven't won it.
Sure.
There's some teams that maybe that have won it that you would say maybe aren't as good as others that maybe didn't get out of their own district at times.
Right.
That happens too. So
in Schoolcraft, that's where Benny Clark's kid
that's where his
went,
kids
right?
went. Yeah. So Benny ended up, after going to Western, they ended up living, and I think they're still down there. They live in Schoolcraft.
And his kid's a stud.
Yeah,
He
he's got
graduated last year, 2 years ago.
Three sons, I want to say. And they're all really good athletes. Now, Benny he wasn't what you'd call maybe the most skilled in terms of he's good at baseball, he's good at basketball. I mean, he was really good in football because he was...
And track.
Because he was fast. He was strong for his size. I mean, he was... Even when he coming up, and I don't remember if it was his junior or senior year, he was benching 300 pounds. He only weighed 155 or something like that.
That's Tate numbers.
That's the opposite of Tate numbers. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Almost 2 times your body weight.
Yeah.
But I wonder if Benny must have felt bad for smacking Schoolcraft so bad in the championship.
Yeah.
Decided to give him a little bit of talent.
Yeah, but his kids were really good athletes in all sports, baseball, basketball, football. And I covered them, and that made me feel I'm not getting any younger, and even then that made me feel really old covering, because Benny and my brother basically grew up. They graduated together. So I watched Benny from the time that, they were playing rocket football, and he was about as tall as he is now. And it wasn't whether he got tackled or not, he's whether anyone would touch him. He'd take a sweep around the end and gone every time.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of good memories out of that, though.
Having those kids makes coaching a lot easier.
For sure. But, even so, like you guys said, Ravenna beat Muskegon Catholic 21-13, so it's that year in I want to say it was the regional. So it's not like they blew everyone off the field, but when they were on and when they were on that given day, they were capable of playing with a lot of teams just because they had the size and the speed and stuff. But, that's another argument for another day. But if you look at the differences between maybe small school football and big school football and what it requires.
Well, either way, it just continues to speak to the rich tradition of West Michigan football, West Michigan Conference being, a state powerhouse in terms of conferences, and the coaching that comes into that conference, the players, communities that support it. It's a special conference in terms of football.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, people talk about it all the time. All year around, all you ever hear really is about football. Then basketball season comes around, but people are still talking about the next football season.
Sure.
And then we were talking with Billy Mann, an employee here, and the lead producer, and we were talking about how the high school he went to in Florida, nobody ever really cared about football. He said nobody really talked about it. It's something that when it came to the season, you played it and then it was over. So it's a little bit different here. And you talked about the rich tradition that we have and how much goes into it, how much people care about it.
How would you describe the vibe of a Friday night, like going out to a game? Because I'm pushing 50 years old, and I still get excited to go out to a game Friday night. It doesn't matter what game. Yeah, there's certain games that you get a little more amped up, but I still get excited to go out and cover games.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other feeling like it, and you try to impress that upon kids that are in the moment, and you just can't replicate that excitement level, the unconditional support of friends, family, community, and it's getting bigger and bigger. I think social media helps, and teams are having food truck rallies before games and parades, and it's a community thing, and it's it's one of the great things about being a kid in America, that you get to experience those things. There's nothing like Friday nights. You can play college and you might play at the next level, but I just, even those guys tell you Friday nights were the best, and so that's saying a lot.
Yeah, it's almost like when you hear those people cheering in the crowd, it means a little bit more. I'm sure even a lot of professional athletes would agree, because all these people, like you said, friends, family, they all know you personally on a very personal level. And I don't know too many things that can get your 85-year-old grandma up out of her seat cheering and yelling, but Friday nights is one of them.
Hey, you're right. That's perfect example, right? Perfect example.
No, that's great. And so back on the best topic, and again, Tate's like, why you keep asking these questions? Best in what, the last 6 years? Because that's what I remember.
As far as
my
I
first
can
sports
remember.
experience.
Yeah.
So best quarterback ever in the West Michigan Conference, or at least in your. And I know where you're going with that again, because how can you not?
You might as well not even look to me. I mean, Cody Cater started in front of Cooper Rush, who's playing on Sunday Night Football now for the Dallas Cowboys while Dak Prescott is out. So it's hard to say anyone different than him.
Yeah, I would agree. But you can throw some names in the mix. Nate McLouth was a heck of a quarterback, right? Like a 4'4" kid running the veer. Okay.
Yeah.
Ross Plant from Urbana, he was tough.
He's good.
Yeah, I mean, they're
Jamie Potts
Jamie
again.
Potts,
Mention him again. What's his? You're gonna laugh because you're like, how do you forget any names? But DJ Ritz. So they beat Lumen Christi, and they didn't just beat Lumen Christi; they pounded Lumen Christi in the finals.
Yeah.
And and you're a football coach, so you would know maybe what they were running, but it was some kind of quarterback keep. And it was, I don't know which play it was, but it was like basically, I don't know if it was off tackle or off guard, but they were abusing Lumen Christi with that same play. Lumen Christi could not stop that play.
Right. And it was DJ.
It was DJ. It was DJ Ritz.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there in the stands. You just don't believe what you're seeing, because Lumen, with all their history and their coaching, Herb Brogan, he's still there. He's been there forever. He might have coached Ken Diamond for all I know. I don't know. That's how long he's been there.
Good chance.
So he's, but they're good at making adjustments. They're not, they're Lumen Christi for a reason, but they could not stop him.
Did not stop him.
Could not.
Correct.
He was fantastic
he was
that
tough.
day.
Yeah.
They've had other ones too. There's so many of them. Gosh, the kid probably about 10 years ago, maybe 5-10 years ago, the blonde-haired kid, smaller kid, but tough. What was his name?
From Oak Ridge?
From Oak Ridge. Oh, I can see his face now.
Yeah, little guy.
His name, little guy, but he was tough.
His name, yeah.
So sorry that we forgot your name, but you were very good. This
little blonde-haired guy.
Little blonde-haired guy from Oak Ridge was really good. He was tough too. But Kent Nichols from Ravenna was good, back from those '90s teams. Steve Crawley back from our teams. Mark Jacobs, to me.
Yeah.
He was on the 1988 Ravenna team, the first one that got to the finals. To me, he's the best athlete to ever come out of Ravenna in terms of complete package. He was about 6'3", 190.
Yeah, he's a big
could
boy.
Run. Yeah.
He's
could
good
do
dude.
it. Everything he did, he was really good at.
Yeah.
And he was, just he kind of had that quiet confidence. Well, not so quiet, but confidence. So, anyone else we're missing?
I would throw Dan Panetta in the mix. Prior to Cody and that era, they made a nice little run. Dan was played at Defiance or somewhere down in Ohio, I think.
He's coaching
for a while.
with them
He's
now,
coaching, right? I think he's either there or
at
Hart.
Montague.
Is he?
Yeah.
But Dan could fling it. He was tough little nut too, boy. That dude didn't mess around. Shelby had a quarterback in that early or to mid 90s that was pretty good. I don't remember his name either. Bays maybe. But yeah, I mean, there's been a a slew of good quarterbacks come out of the conference.
Yeah.
No.
North Muskegon. I mean, Hart coach Joe, was it him? He's basically, he had high praise for James Young.
Yeah.
He said that's one of the better quarterbacks I've seen in the area in a while.
Sure. Yeah.
So
he might end up in that mix
young.
at some point. Sure.
He's still only a sophomore,
Right.
but I mean you saw him again. You saw him against Orchardview. Orchardview's struggling, but I mean, what did you think of James?
I was very impressed by some of his accuracy on his deep tosses. I mean, carrying the ball 45 yards in the air and hitting TJ right on the hands, and him pulling it in and bringing it for, I think he had 2 or 3 touchdowns that day. So I was pretty impressed by some of the throws that he was making, and I'm excited to see what he does against Montague.
Yeah, I mean, the system is set up for a kid like that with those abilities. I mean, at the end of the day, he'll probably go down as the most prolific passing quarterback in North Muskegon without question, just based on the number of attempts and kind of the offensive philosophy. So he works hard at his craft. He really does. He puts in the work.
So many guys to go to though. I mean,
Lots of weapons.
TJ, but there's a lot. They're all
lot
over
of weapons.
the place.
Yeah.
You don't see them every game just because, that's maybe one guy has the hot hand or a guy's getting open on a given day.
Right. I mean, you could, do you hand the ball to Denny, make him a 20-touch kid? Do you throw it to Ben Myers? Do you throw it to Alec Newville? Do you throw it to Carson Moat, to TJ, to Talon? There's just so many options.
And Ben Myers, I mean, he might be the most complete player on the team in terms of overall, all things considered, potentially, right?
Yeah, I would argue that he's probably the most complete player in the area as far as overall football player, both offensively and defensively.
I was impressed by him in the playoff game last year.
Yeah, he's a stud.
He was, that was that 7-6 game, but he was really tough. And he at the time, third string?
Third.
Quarterback that for them.
Yeah, but I like that North Muskegon offense because West Michigan Conference cornerbacks don't get tested too often.
Right.
There's not too many teams that toss the ball around like they do, really ever in my recent history. Montague running the spread, they threw the ball not as much as North Muskegon, but pretty close.
Yeah.
But some of those cornerbacks, I feel like there's some weak spots on some teams.
Yeah.
And I think they test it out, and it works pretty well.
Well, it's the hardest position in football to play.
Oh yeah,
corner and then quarterback. So they're always looking for your best athletes to play corner.
So changing gears again to another best coach of all time, Tate.
Well, let me dig into my deep bank of names here. Yeah, I got about Pat Collins, and I met, I know Ken Diamond, and I met Dusty Fairfield the other day. A wide array of names, I know.
There you go.
You haven't met Jack
You're going
Sugars?
way back.
Haven't met Jack Sugars.
Well, Jack's got him obviously in the mix. If he's not at the top, he's right near the top. If he's not at the top.
If you have a field named after you, then you're in the mix.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
No question. What about you and your years of being around it?
It's interesting for me because I look at it, historically, and Jack's in there, and Dusty's there, and Pat's in there. But the person that I learned the most from in terms of becoming a coach was Ken Diamond, and he had a huge influence and impact on how I coach now. He was a technician. He knew how to treat kids, and just he was the complete package to me. He was a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And so he was a good one to learn from. So I would put him in the mix, but as a personal influence and coach and development for me, he was the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, and in the time I've been watching, in the conference, I think I've got to go with Jack. Although Dusty, he was great too, and Pat Collins, obviously. Kerry Harger's done a nice job there. He's still looking for his first title there as a coach at Oak Ridge, first state title that is. Dusty's got 4 of them. Jack got 3 of them. So those guys are kind of 1 and 1A for me. Jack and Dusty.
Yeah, well, they're institutions.
Yeah.
Right? They really are.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all right, you're off the schneid, or not, or off the, I guess, hot seat, not schneid. That was Shelby getting off the schneid.
I could give you some score predictions, but
all right, because I think now we're going to take this time to kind of dive deeper into the Oak Ridge and Whitehall matchup, and I think that I don't think you've seen Oak Ridge yet, though, have you?
Not in
you
person.
Covered
no.
them. You saw Whitehall a couple times. I don't know if you've seen either of those teams or seen them on film or not, but
I watched Whitehall on film last night against Montague. I haven't seen Oak Ridge, But do you want to score now?
You can score now or at the end. We got about 10 minutes or so.
I mean, do we want to let the anticipation build?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, let's let it build.
Let's do that.
Right? Yeah, let's let it build.
So what do you see on film? Well, we'll start with Whitehall. What do you see on film with them?
God, so last night was the first time I saw them on film, and they're huge. Their offensive line, they're big. I mean, you talk about Ravenna in 94, that was the year, right? Like, they've got that kind of size. They're just so dynamic. They're so fast. Defensively, they're gonna be tough to move the ball on. Their quarterback is dynamic. He can beat you in multiple ways. Lots of skilled kids. I mean, you can just keep going and going and going about all the good things that they have in place right now.
Because I've been bullish on them all from the summer. Keep saying that, but I mean, I didn't know if that's just what I'm seeing or if people agree or not. Just like this team is just different than other Whitehall teams I've seen.
Right. Yeah.
No, we've talked about that, and we started it off on media day talking about just their presence and how big they are. Their size was so great, and you could tell even without the pads on. But I'm curious to see. North Muskegon doesn't have Whitehall on the schedule, though.
No, thank you.
No, I wish they did, though. I wish they did, though, because I wanted to see North Muskegon throw the ball around on Whitehall. And I know they have good athletes at their defensive backs, too. But sometimes the passing game, if you can keep a little bit of time, for the quarterback, stay in the pocket, maybe 2, 3, 4 seconds, start hitting them in the flats, start getting them, pushing it down the field. No one's really tried that on Whitehall. And I was curious to see how that would happen.
Yeah, if I'm Carey, like I'm milking the play clock. Like we're snapping it at 1 every play. Like I want to take the air out of the ball and do what Oak Ridge does and try to shove that thing down their throats, catch them with play action, but limit their touches. They're just so explosive and they can make big plays at any moment that you just have to kind of control the time of possession.
Right. Right.
No, and it's that's a great point. I mean, Oak Ridge beat them last year.
Yeah.
Now, granted, different teams, things are different, but they beat them 32-19 at Whitehall. They had early in that game, Josa, I think it was more of a deflected pass. He batted down the pass himself and then caught it and ran it in.
Yeah.
Early, and that kind of set the tone early when Ethan Josa did that for Oak Ridge, and then Whitehall kind of battled back, but then Oak Ridge was just the tougher team that day, like mentally tougher, maybe physically tougher that day, and I think Whitehall would probably say that too. So I'm just wondering what kind of motivation Whitehall brings into this one too. I mean, they're both going to be motivated a lot to play for, but at the same time, how does that play into things too? When what happened last year, how much does that factor in? Is that just all talk?
Yeah, I think it has it has some to do with what might motivate you. Other things work in on that too. They're Whitehall's Division 1 or Division 4 number 1 rated team. Like there's a target on your back. How are you going to respond being the hunted, right? And that's a new situation for them. Going undefeated, that puts on some pressure, right? A league title pressure. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond to all that. I mean, Oak Ridge has nothing to lose at this point, right? And I think people are expecting Whitehall to win. And so that, being the underdog, sometimes that's enough to get a team fired up. And
yeah, I agree. But I think Coach Sigmund has these boys focused. I've seen them on the sidelines. I've heard them all talking in the huddle a little bit. And all these guys seem like they're definitely united towards the common goal.
Yeah.
And they all seem very, very ready to keep pushing forward and make that push in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're going to be tough out. They're going to be tough out for sure.
No, that'll be, to me, with Whitehall, with any Whitehall team, especially in this one included, is just keeping that razor sharp focus and keeping the eyes on the prize where they're supposed to be, where things are supposed to be, where you're supposed to be focusing on, not getting caught up in all the hype right. And other outside stuff, all the trash, any trash talk that happens, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Score? Oh. My final score, let me think about touchdowns in the quarter. I think I'm going to have Whitehall over Oak Ridge, and I'm going to have Whitehall 42-20.
Shut up. I literally said the same thing in my mind. 42-20. Literally. Yeah.
I think there's a reason why, though. I think Whitehall's going to put some points on the board. They might put a couple in a hurry. I think you're right. I think Oker's going to try to control the time of possession, but I see Whitehall by a few touchdowns. And I guess you do, too.
I'm not kidding. I literally, I was thinking 42-20. We're like brothers.
We have to be.
So is it, you said you see Whitehall jumping up early, but then maybe maintaining a 2 to 3 touchdown edge the whole way, or do you think it's tight for a while, or gets tight at any point?
I just see Whitehall. Whitehall has so many athletes and so many playmakers and so much size, and we talk about it every single time. And I just don't know if Oak Ridge is going to be able to keep up with their pace of play. I just don't.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if when you run the veer, the ball's in the air, so that makes you nervous. They do throw the ball well, so anytime that the ball's in the air, that makes you nervous. And Oak Ridge will always play solid defense. So, maybe a turnover here or there kind of sparks some Oak Ridge life, but I think it's going to be fast and furious.
Yeah, and I'm not. You guys are like, okay, where's your prediction? You got to wait till Thursday because I got to hold that off.
Oh,
you're like, that's so weak. That's such a cop out, right? So about that North Muskegon Urbana game in a couple weeks, we'll talk about that. I think next week a little bit more. But do you see? What do you see for? We'll keep it on Whitehall, Oak Ridge for now. What do you see for the playoffs for those guys, for each of those teams, knowing who's in their divisions, who they could run into, that kind of thing? If you look at Oak Ridge, of course they got to contend with Grand Rapids Catholic Central again at some point. If you get to that this year, Tri-County, a team that Oak Ridge kind of handled, or it was, I don't know if you'd say the handle or if it was more of a shootout, but they won pretty comfortably against Tri-County last year. Tri-County's undefeated so far. They're excited up there. I don't know. What do you guys think for Oak Ridge's playoff run?
I mean, anytime you have to deal with Catholic Central, it just kind of takes the wind out of your sail.
Yeah.
They're loaded, surprisingly. I mean, it's so much depends on where you go, if you go north or the directions you're going to go in. But I could see them winning a district title if they don't run into Catholic.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good prediction.
Yeah.
You need to stop taking my things, but no, I think that's a solid spot for them. If they don't run into Catholic Central, I think they can win a couple games of the playoffs. I don't know if I see them making as deep as a run as the Whitehall Vikings.
I agree.
And Oak Ridge has been on a run, like a district title run. They've had their success in quite a while, but in recent years they've, they'll play some of the CSAA teams, like the Tri-Counties, Big Rapids, and kind of had their way with those teams. And then they get to the regional, and that's usually where they run into Grand Rapids Catholic, or in the past it was West Catholic, those types of teams. And, for Whitehall, it's looking like you can look at the rankings. Those don't always mean everything, but I think the game that a lot of people are kind of pointing to, if potentially like a regional or a semifinal or whatever, would be Whitehall against Grand Rapids South Christian.
Yeah.
Because in the AP poll, South Christian's 1 and Whitehall's 2.
Yeah.
I heard they're loaded too.
Yeah, I've heard
South
that too.
Christian is.
Right. Shocking.
Yeah.
Again, MHSA, private school multiplier. Just saying.
Just tossing that in.
So I called my shot last week on this. I said that Whitehall would get to Ford Field.
Yeah.
I will add to this that if they do, then, I mean, why wouldn't you see them winning it?
For sure.
Obviously, you don't know what's on the other side there. You don't know how that's going to play out. And I don't know a ton about, like, the East Side schools in Division 4. I haven't seen. I heard Chelsea might be a little down. They won it last year over Unity in that crazy game. But it would be kind of cool to see a different team. Not that we don't like the usual powers. Montague, Oak Ridge, and Urbana's had some success, but it would be cool to see a team like Whitehall break through, because they've never been. I don't know that they've won a regional before.
I don't think so.
And it'd be kind of cool to see them break through on that run, and pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah, it's always cool to see other schools and communities in the conference root for teams that go, right? Because they always do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's just another piece that makes that league so special.
Right. So any other thoughts, guys?
I don't think so.
No. think I'm good.
Ready to see what happens on Friday?
I think I got my score prediction for Thursday's on the mark, and
If you say 42-20,
41-20.
have to wait.
42-21.
I'm gonna Price is Right. You do it. Right? Totally going the Price is Right and get just under that.
My gosh.
But I gotta, when you gotta show your face at these places, you gotta be careful with these score predictions.
yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Even if you do think it's going to be more than it is, you don't usually say it out loud.
you can't.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Don't know. All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Tate Stine, Ken Byard, thanks for joining me again here on the Van Dyke Mortgage and Durg Insurance podcast. We also want to thank Grieve Law, Big Stone Therapies, Green Ridge Realty with Chris Dykema and Sarah Reel, North Grove Brewers, Foundation Systems of Michigan with John Botten, Coldwell Banker with Dave Dusenberry, and Scheid Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Thanks a lot, guys. This is episode 6, season 2 of the CSN podcast. Have a great week, everyone.